So the Brahman is the supporter of the whole universe, and it was mentioning as the string of gems. It supports just like the string supports the gems on a necklace. The Brahman supports the world, the universe, the substratum. It is the substratum of all. It pervades all aspects of the waking, dream, and deep sleep states. So it mentioned many attributes in the previous verses. I am the sapidity in the water. So it's that which gives you the taste. I am the intelligence of the intelligent. So anytime you think of AI, it's what backs AI. It's behind everything of what is manifested, because of the general marketing is that AI will back you. It backs it. Artificial intelligence. So I am Pranava, Om, of the Vedas. So it's beyond the subtlest element, sound, space. I am the splendor of the splendor. So all the best of the best. He doesn't mention the foul of the foul, but though that's also true if it's the substratum. Just so that we keep on a path which is of refinement, and we understand it's not the path which is of death, pollution, though Brahman backs all of it, backs the pairs of opposites. I am the eternal seed. So as if you remember, when you plant a seed, if it grows into a tree, perhaps the seed's a tree seed, but then that seed particular is done and gone. Perhaps the tree produces more seeds, but here he's saying is the eternal seed, in the context that he means beyond all causation, all time, all space. It doesn't happen to disappear. It's always there. If we can take the metaphor of the ocean, maybe many, many waves which come out of the ocean and dive back into the ocean, and then another one appears. If you ever watch the sea, the waves come in and they disintegrate. Then another wave forms. I forget what you call it. When the wave swell comes up and then dissolves again. So the ocean is always backing it. The water is always backing it. So it's like that, much more than that. Eternal seed. So even when we have hundreds of thousands of years of creation that we can perhaps historically, archaeologically detect that yes, there was something, and we can project, yes, there will be something in the future, and we see what is right now. But the reality is we don't stretch our projection more than that. We don't really know what's beyond that or what is to come. So he's saying, I'm all of that, beyond all of time, space, causation. So that when we define the reality is that which is the same in the past, present, and future. Doesn't change. So, yapashati sapashati, whoever sees it, sees it. Can't expect anybody really to get onto this and really think about it. yapashiti, sapashiti. Only when one begins to explore this sort of realm of thinking do you begin to inquire. It's not like, oh, you know something that somebody doesn't. It's the fact that you make your own inquiry, question, and you think. There comes a suspicion, a possibility that there's something other, or there's a different possibility than what you just see as it is now. So whoever sees it, sees it. Let's go. 10. Is it 10? 11.
11.
11.
Balam balavatam amaraga vivarjitam dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi paradharsabha.
Dharma, if you could read the verse.
I am the strength of the strong, devoid of desire and attachment. In beings I am desire which is not contrary to Dharma, order of the Vedas, O Bharat Sabha.
Bharat. So, I am the strength in the strong. So what makes you strong mentally? That's what you've got to ask. And here he's putting it, that which is devoid of desire and attachment. So what weakens you is your desire and attachment. So in which case, one ought to understand, what do we mean by desire and what do we mean by attachment? Both topics are lofty. This topic of attachment is huge. And in actual fact, the whole philosophy is based upon how you can evolve out of that attachment to that which holds you, that which binds you to an illusory world. So I am the strength in the strong. Anybody want to give it a shot? What do we mean by attachment? Without karma and raga, desire and attachment. Because we keep using this word, attachment, all of the time. What do we mean by attachment? Vidya.
I think it's the human relationship to the material objects around us and the other human beings. We strive to acquire these objects, then we believe they belong to us. And then when we lose the objects, we suffer in pain. That's because of the notion of our relationship with these objects. So that's the bondage that holds us back, and that's the cause of our discontentment. So we don't do what we call as the sakshiba. We are not a witness. We get so entangled with the happenings of the world that weighs us in. We can't get out of that vicious cycle.
Okay. Thanks. Attachment. There's a whole book that Swamiji's written entitled The Holocaust of Attachment. It's like a word, the title makes you shiver, but it's supposed to. So what is this attachment? Tim.
Just to expand upon Vidya's. It's also what we use to build up our identity. So it's not just physical objects, it's reputation, fame, our personality we project.
So what you've said in the cases is the result of that attachment, or what's the manifestation, name, fame. But you can still have name and fame and not be attached to it. So what would you add perhaps to that? What do I mean by the attachment? What makes the difference between that attachment and, could we say, detachment? Should we not have any possessions? Should we not have any, if you become known, is that an attachment? You've got to go into hiding if you become known. What do we mean? Any additions? Or Tim, you want to add anything?
Well, I am Atman. I don't need to identify with any one particular thing. And so I do not need to be attached to physical objects or mental attributes. The two are connected.
So you don't need to, but the fact is we have attachments. So what is making us attached?
A fear of losing.
Fear of losing. Babita, you had something?
Yeah, I just want to say attachment is like if you lose that, you feel the pain. But if you're not attached to that, it doesn't matter whether you have it or don't. If it's gone, you don't actually feel pain.
So it doesn't affect you.
Mm.
Okay. Nishi, you had something?
Is it to do with selfishness and selflessness? So we might be attached to it, but if we don't have that selfish desire for the fruits, then it doesn't matter.
So how are you attached to it then?
Because of the selfish desire.
Okay. So are you saying if it caters to me and I lose it, then I get hurt by it because I've got a selfish desire? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. But if I have a different desire, unselfish desire, or selfless desire, then I won't be bothered by it. Is that what you mean? I'm putting words in your mouth. You can disagree. So if you lose it, it's painful. What else? What other attributes of attachment is there? What else does attachment do? You become attached to something. So it's a fear of losing. Jyoti?
Looking at it on the other side, if you become attached to something, you can become very protective of it.
Mm-hmm. So it's like mind possessive?
Yeah, mind possessive, absolutely.
Can protect something, isn't it, nicely? But that possessiveness. So there's a fear of losing and there's a possessiveness. One more thought, one more point. Have a think. What else is happening? Dharma?
I would say that when I am attached to something or someone, I lose my individuality of thought. So I tend to get carried away by something else or someone else.
So you're totally affected by the outside rather
Yes,
than independent. Yeah.
thinking, yeah.
Okay. Okay. And there's one last thing to note in attachment.
It makes you weaker.
Okay. Makes you weaker. So you're fearful, you're possessive, you've got a self-centered attitude, you're affected by everybody and everything around.
Your
And
ego is it's your ego in play. You're affected by the name and fame. So you're doing things, you are particular about the doer. So you're more interested in the name and the fame than
so you have that
the actual job, you see?
the actual job.
Yeah.
So you're craving for that name and fame.
Mm.
So you want to, as one more thought in this attachment business. Anybody? See, we use this word regularly. Attachment. It's mine. It's mine. When one is attached to something, there's a craving, there's a desire, a possessiveness, that self-interest that needs to cater to me. And you always focused on the end product. But unfortunately, that craving and desire or that attachment gets so bound that fear of losing it gets so hanging on and clinging that you lose the time to do something else. And you actually, the value of that pleasure or that relationship, what it gains you, that pleasure, there's no elbow room because of the possessiveness. So that value is totally diminished in its pleasure, yet you can't leave it. So you have a relation or you have an attachment, a possessiveness to objects or beings for absolutely zero pleasure or enjoyment or evolution. So you have to put in extra efforts to keep it for no productivity, no pleasure, no joy, because there's so much fear of losing it. This is called neutralization. The fear is so greater to lose it that you'd rather put in the pleasure, the effort to keep it with no pleasure. And that when I'm talking no pleasure, could be stressful or more detrimental, but you'll still put in the effort. That is attachment. Kills you. Hence, Swamiji's book, The Holocaust of Attachment. So he's talking about attachment. You have to think about it. This word encompasses two words. Renunciation is the opposite of attachment. Attachment is when it demolishes you, and renunciation is when it enables you growth, evolution, taking up something bigger. So here he's saying, without karma, without desire or attachment, devoid of desire and attachment in beings. But also, he maintains here that that desire, which is not contrary to Dharma. So if you're performing activities which are unselfish, selfless, towards the higher, then that's okay, because you always, when you're performing activities towards something higher, an ideal, a goal beyond your own self-interest, you're actually evolving and you're dropping the lower values. You're no longer interested in them because you've got something bigger in place. So that you're dropping that attachment. So you're refining yourself. So in terms of the desire which leads you to that universal aspect of living, that truth, that self, that Brahman. It says here, order of the Vedas. Bharata Shata. Bull amongst the Bharatas. You're the warrior amongst all. You're the one who can achieve all without. You've got that capacity of putting in the maximum and taking the minimum out. Focus is always on what you put back in your evolution. Let's go to let's read their commentary.
The strength of a person is related to his self-centeredness. The more selfish you become, the less strength you wield. Conversely, when you drop your selfishness, no longer obsessed with egocentric desires and attachments, you gain power and strength. Your attachments pertain to your past. Bound by them, you worry and suffer the sorrows thereof. Your desires relating to your future make you anxious to gain their fruits. These worries from the past and anxieties for the future sap your energy and strength. You see this truth clearly when you compare an adult to a child. A child effervesces with energy and vigor all the time, whereas the adult slouches with fatigue and exhaustion. This paradox stems from the fact that a child has neither worries from the past nor anxieties for the future. But in the case of an adult, his attachments and desires infest his mind with endless worries and anxieties. This weakness drains his strength. However, those who practice tapas, spiritual disciplines, overcome their attachments and desires to command power and strength. and the enlightened one, absolutely free from this weakness, becomes omnipotent.
So the more you can pitch up a bigger value, the less the attachment of the lower has a bearing on you. So when one's infested with desires, that worry and anxiety is constantly kicking in and ruining your capacity, your strength. But the child doesn't have worry and anxiety much at all. It just plays, it doesn't worry. It doesn't worry to have to pay any bills or any XYZs that are in the adult's mind. The child just plays. It is not worrying about anything. It has actually a lot of energy. It's not attached to anything and what will happen if this happens. If at all, it might be attached to its toy. We can't afford to lose that. But as adults, we are attached to the bigger toys. What can be the bigger toys? What are our toys? Which sap our energies, which causes that worry and anxiety. Because we're stronger than the child. So what's sapping us?
Is our ego.
Our ego. So that's when the play of worry and anxiety comes in. Play of ego. So what's the toys that we're playing with in the pursuits that we do follow? A child's playing with toys. Teddy, bicycle, games, running about. We're playing a different game, just a bit older. We've dropped toys. Teddy bear. I think I mentioned in one class, maybe in this one earlier, and somebody said, I still got my teddy bear. I won't let go of it. So, what toys are we playing with? I think somebody mentioned it earlier in the class. Anyone?
Our
Is it
materialistic
ignorance?
possessions.
So, Babita, go ahead. You were saying? Ash?
No, sorry, I was just saying, is it we delve more into ignorance, choosing to engage more into the world and believing the truth of what that presents to be the truth. So we play with that more.
So we play with the world more, but what do we want from the world? What are our toys? What's making us pursue the world? What do we want to get out of it?
Happiness.
Happiness, okay. But what are we thinking it's going to give it us?
Possessions, materials.
Positions, names, fame, positions, wealth. So at the different levels, material, physical, mental, emotional, intellectual, we want all these things to be materially well endowed. Physically, we want the mentally, we want the name, the fame, the position, the material well-being. We want the be popular. We want everybody to love us. We want our happiness. So these are just different toys we're playing with, essentially, from the outside. Let's read the next.
In the latter part of the verse, Brahman declares that it exists in beings as desire, which does not conflict with Dharma, meaning the order of the Vedas. The Vedas contain the highest spiritual injunctions directing mankind to their supreme abode, Brahman. Those who entertain a desire for Brahman, for self-realization, follow the path ordained by the Vedas. All other desires are secular. They merely pursue material wealth and sensual enjoyments. They follow a direction opposed to the Vedic order. Therefore, the desire for self-realization, in line with the Vedic injunctions, leads to Brahman. This desire for Brahman, in the ultimate state, merges with Brahman. The verse expresses this idea poetically as Brahman being the divine desire itself.
So that's the only desire that's permitted. The desire for the Brahman. That it comes from the Brahman. So the idea is to drop your selfishness, drop your desire and attachment. That gains one the power, something more universal. If you have the power, truly, you won't use it for your self-centered means. When you don't truly have the power, you abuse it. The lack of, you feel that you've got something, you abuse it, but true power is not abused. You won't use it for selfish wants, selfish means. When you you're focused on the truth, you become that enjoyer. In verse 13, I think I mentioned it the last week, verse 23, chapter 13, he mentions you become the enjoyer. When you're following truth or the Brahman, it permits you to enjoy. It supports your enjoyment. It enables you to become that witness. It enables you to become that Brahman by default. So you become that commander through your service and sacrifice. Let's go to
Bharata Sarba, Bharata Sabha,
Sabha.
another name of Arjuna, means bull among the Bharatas. The bull epitomizes the very culture of India. It demonstrates a great principle of living. A bull plows the field the whole day, cultivating grains for human consumption. In return for its hard labor, without a selfish motive, it gets only some hay for its sustenance. It functions on the principle maximum work and minimum profit. No ego or egocentric desires pollute the bull's work. No katritva bhavana, I am the doer attitude, or bhoktritva bhavana, I am the enjoyer attitude. Its work rests on service and sacrifice. While modern educated people follow the principle of minimum work and maximum profit throughout the world, they need to graft this lofty principle of work into their lives. Be a bull in society. Krishna declares Arjuna as one such in the noble race of the Bharatas.
So never shirk your work. If you have a karma or work, all your work becomes karma. Never shirk it. If you want to put minimum in to take maximum out, you're going to have a problem. You've got to put the maximum in and just take the minimum for your sustenance. That's yajna. That gives you the strength. That power, devoid of desire and attachment, to have the power and not to use it. Devoid of desire and attachment. Let's go 13, 12.
Sorry, Paralji.
Yes.
Can I just ask, what does it mean exactly by the order of the Vedas? Does it mean just doing the right thing? You know, like following the 10 commandments. Is it a bit like that? Is that what is the order of the Vedas?
Yeah. It just means following that which is given in the Vedas. There's so much given in the Vedas. Yes. There's so much, so many, there's obviously 4 different paths: karma, bhakti, jnana, yoga, dhyana, to get to the truth. How you get to the truth, the methods, and all the aspects. There's so much detail. So it's to follow that. But if you simplify what's being said in the colossal, the Vedas, that knowledge, scriptures, essentially, you can't afford to be with self-interest, selfishness. It's got to be pitched up to unselfishness, to selflessness, if you want to transform yourself. And the order of the Vedas is saying that all the way through. If you want to connect up with your world and be independent as well, gain that truth, you've got to follow that sort of method. So 10 Commandments is because it uses the word order, I guess that's why maybe it comes to mind. But there is a definite dynamics from gross to subtle usage of the Vedas. And something, just as you mentioned it, the 10 Commandments comes at the very basics of the Vedic tradition, because commandments are, you should do this, you shouldn't do that. And it's not really for the thinking person commandments, it's for the person not thinking, to prevent them from getting into trouble. But as you move up with, the knowledge becomes less of an imposition, you should or you shouldn't, but more where you have to decipher it yourself through your own logical thinking. You know, we're given a commentary and we've got to think what attachment means. So we've got to think, how do we maneuver ourselves in life through this knowledge? It's not telling you should or you shouldn't, it's asking you, say, ask yourself a question, draw that knowledge from within yourself out. So it gives you the knowledge, then you've got to use it. It doesn't impose it on you. And it gives you aphorisms, which maybe you're at that height of very few desires to understand it and transition to the truth. It may give you stories that maybe you don't even understand do's and don'ts, but suddenly, slowly, you get the moral of the story, you know, in bhajans or Puranic stories or parables. So there's a method in the madness of the way the Vedas are offered, suiting different types of people, from less of a thinker, a non-thinker, to somebody who's very refined in keeping their mind on the higher values, which probably needs very little to
So it's a more of a reflection question. Say if like one person here thinks about everybody else, but everybody else thinks about themselves, would that make me in a losing position because the environment is not enabling for this sort of order to exist?
When something's a universal principle, the loser is the one who thinks for only themselves. But if the mass is only thinking for themselves, then they become the loser. They have to suffer the stress and strain of their everyday lives, whether they realize what they're doing or not. Now, the fact that a person asks this question, not you, everybody will be asking this question, so you've just pointed it out. The fact that one asks, well, I'm doing everything for everybody, nobody's doing anything for me, is where it lies in the rub. It's not actually being unselfish. You want something from it, not you, Dharma, just all of us having this thought. So when you truly are serving, you don't want anything back. In fact, you might get somebody to do something, not because you want something, but that's how your interest of their growth is. So that you're never in a losing position if you evolve your own unselfishness or selflessness. You'll be a confident position. You understand, it's like saying there's a whole load of children fighting, and you understand, I don't want to get into that fight, I've got something bigger to do. But you're trying to explain to the children, why aren't you following me? But they're too busy fighting. So they're too wrapped up in their fight, and they don't want to follow you or help you in any way. They've got better things. So you feel that you're losing out if you, so should you go and join the fight? If you understand it, you won't join the fight. Unless if you don't understand, you think, oh, I'm fed up of putting back something here. Well, you're not actually really putting something back. There's an ulterior motive you want to put back only if you get something back. So you can't afford, you're not the loser when you believe in your truth self. Where there's a giver, there's got to be takers. We've got to make the givers and takers smart so everything flourishes. Doesn't mean to say you keep giving and deplete yourself. It's more refined and intelligent than that. But once you are grounded in your knowledge, nobody, when you're being unselfish, people can take advantage if you're not smart, you're giving to the wrong people, you'll be taken advantage of. But then you've got to look what you are giving and put it in the right place, or join the fight. You're never the loser when you're embarking on your own spiritual evolution. But the minute you look outward, if everybody's doing something contrary to what you think is of higher value, you get caught up and entangled in that, what we call alpa buddhi, small-mindedness, and think you're the loser. So you've got to keep up high, keep going, keep with that knowledge. That's why in the order of the Vedas, it's very difficult. The Vedas, the truth is within us, but it's very difficult to draw it out without some support mechanism. So we use a scripture to keep giving us, it's like a catalyst, keep perking us up to think, oh, it's like this, like that. Because we don't have the stamina alone to draw it out of ourselves fully. We might draw something out and then we get stuck again. And then we draw it. So the desired order of the Vedas he puts here. That makes sense. There's a common question, it's not Dharma's question. Everybody's asking the same in their heads. Tim.
I'd also like to ask a common question. There are many religious sects who would identify God or Brahman with desire itself, not desire which is contrary to the Dharma, but just desire. It's an interesting formulation of the word. What makes things change, what makes things move, what makes anything happen is desire. So this formulation of Brahman as desire, but desire which is not contrary to the Vedas, is a curious formulation.
So I don't know where it says in any other culture or religion, maybe in culture, but in any sort of religion or philosophy where it says desire is a good thing. Because in Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, that I can say, it's actually saying that desire is that barrier between you and your truth. So if there's somewhere, let me know. But it's deliberate because you're right. We do have desires. And in order to maneuver to get to the truth, we have to utilize whatever our nature is, which is the backdrop of our desires, is propelled by our nature, our swadharmic nature, our vasanas, which formulates into a desire, then an action. That's the chronology. In which case, we don't maneuver without utilizing that desire. Totally agreed. And hence why it's pointing out, what do we mean? What sort of desire is permitted and what's not? But I don't know where it says, you've got to, apart from in management speak, where it's perhaps rajasically orientated, you've got to have a desire to get to the result. What they're forgetting is when you have a desire focused on a result, your action gets impoverished, in which case it keeps you with stress, in which case you will gain the goal, but you won't enjoy it, in which you see all over the world, people gain their goals, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're stress-free. They might have the material goals. It doesn't necessarily mean they've got peace of mind. the richest countries are warring with each other. There's something to be said about that. Where's the desire? What's it doing? So contrary, I am the desire which is not contrary to Dharma. That's the only one permitted. It's got to be in the direction of evolution of the truth, not evolution, devolution of division. It's a divinity in that diversity. I'd be interested to know which philosophy, which religion promotes desire in a manner not contrary to something higher. Or perhaps maybe promotes one's ego. Certainly Rajasic and materialism do that. It's voiced, very vocal about promoting your ego and desires. That one has to observe the results. And that we should stop. So just keep in mind in class generally, before you come to class, have a think of what you're going to look at the text and keep reflecting over what we're looking at as we've done today, because it's only when we actually question it and we actually reflect on it, then we understand these common words that we're using all the time, like attachment. Then you can actually put it in practice to actually observe your own growth and think about what you're doing. Otherwise, it just becomes a whole series of words that you know very, very well, but it's not moving your own evolution. So let's go from there. Keep in mind, I'll keep asking you questions. Anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.